Welcome back, Steeler fans, to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the best co-hosts that money can buy. Will Masek, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben, and Corey Karbowski, you know him as Corey39. As always, Will, what is our sponsor of the week?
We mix it up a little bit. Tonight, it's the Lagunitas Hazy Wonder
Oh, all right.
IPA. It likes it when my hand is there. There you go. There you go.
There
I
we
gotta
go.
figure out how to do the placements whenever I have this stupid screen thing there. But anyway, yeah, it's a little hoppy.
Yep, just to note that we are not paid by any alcoholic beverages in any instance. So no, I'm just joking. That
We wish.
yeah,
we wish we were.
Need a disclaimer.
I don't know. I need this alcohol to get me through the podcast.
Well, there you go. That's what I probably
Tone down my energy, my excitement a little bit because I have too much energy. You know, that's what the way it is when you're old.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing to do with it.
Well, you know, there is some excitement. We did come off a win this past weekend. Pittsburgh, once again, pulled out a win. That's kind of what we do this year. We don't really win ball games. We just pull wins when they're within reach most of the time. So nice little win, 23-19. Boy, we always have to make it interesting though. But another week goes by, another inside linebacker. We lose Quan Alexander out for the year with an Achilles injury. Boy, you know, for a position that we thought we were going to have a lot of depth in this year, thank God we did to start at least, because we sure as hell aren't very deep now, down to Mark Robinson as our second inside linebacker, guy who's, you know, hasn't even played the position full time for 3 years. I mean, if you want to go back to his college ball, if you want to count 1 year of college ball linebacking experience. And then we're down to Landon Roberts, who by all means is having a good year, you know, just worry about him in coverage some more. But let's kind of dive into this past game a little bit. Some things I did like. Did we run the ball well? Oh, hey, yeah, we did. Hey, that's exactly what this crew wants. Roderick Jones at right tackle is a big part of that again. Little disclaimer, PFF, I don't know what you're smoking, but your grades suck. Because you also graded Keanu Benton like historically low, and he had a pretty damn good game. So I don't know what's going on at PFF, but gentlemen, how about our takes about what you liked from this past game? Will, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what playing the best five on offensive line, the best five that you have, can do for something like the run game. Maybe it can't solve all of your problems, but it certainly made a huge difference. I mean, it helps to play teams that maybe aren't the best at stopping the run and get a little momentum going. But I think if you're going to be so determined to run the football, you should at least be able to do it that well. And it didn't, you know, it's not that it generated a ton of points, but man, a couple touchdowns, you know, a couple drives moved along well with the run game. So hard not to be impressed with that aspect of it.
Yeah, Corey, what do you like from this past week?
I mean, I like Keanu Benton. I mean, he's been a stalwart in there. I mean, I think any of us would be lying if we said Keanu Benton would look this good, you know, 9 games into his rookie season, let alone 4 years from now. I mean, he looks excellent in there. I mean, it's a shame that Roberts is getting thrown into this role that he's not supposed to be doing because he's been damn good at what he's been asked to do, at least before the pass coverage stuff. I mean, he's been, you know, however fondly you think of Vince Williams, he's at least been at that level as a run stuffer for us. And I mean, we've needed that desperately for a while. And, you know, it makes a big difference. So, you know, on the defensive side, that's stuff that I've liked seeing. Offensively, there's really not much to say other than when you can run the ball like that, keep running it. You know, Kenny with 14 for 23 stat line 126, which is what it is. I mean, it's you know, he's still inaccurate, but I mean, he's winning games. So when you can run the ball like that, that's all you really need. But it's the 3-6 Packers. So, you know, we can have all this discussion about, you know, week to week, what the wins will be like, but I'll bring it up in a few minutes, but I've got some stats on the, you know, more of the defensive end that kind of go against us doing much in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Jeremy, I bet I can guess the thing that you liked from the game.
Oh, really?
that one attempt at a throw in between the numbers more than 10 yards downfield that got called back because of a penalty. But I knew you were really excited when that happened.
I was going to mention that, this is great that 2 weeks in a row, we've basically tried nothing over the middle. If you look at Kenny Pickett's passing chart, it's sideline, short, sideline. Yep. Yeah. It's a giant U of you suck, Matt Canada.
I don't think I think this week, especially when you remove the penalty, I don't think there was a pass inside the numbers past 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage.
There was not.
Yeah. I mean, is this team so devoid of like Pat Fryermuth that we can't throw anything up the seam? I mean, was he the only guy we can ask to do that? I mean,
you had Hayward running free across the middle. You had guys that were there. I mean, it's like I think the receivers are so used to the quarterback not making those throws that they don't even really run routes through the middle that are designed to do anything but be clear outs. That's sort of the way it looks to me. But the chart thing is enough to drive you insane. Today I looked at the passing charts of some of the other really crappy quarterbacks in the league to try if I could find somebody that was as, is into that U-shaped thing. And I mean, Tommy DeVito is throwing all over. It's like all over the field. His chart is like, guy, what's his name? Third start for Will Levis. His 3 starts, he's like it is literally from 60 yards downfield to the line of scrimmage. It's just covered with dots.
Yeah, it's like the tree of life.
Yeah, it's like, so even quarterbacks that are new or they're trying to protect a little bit or whatever still get some kind of opportunity to throw. And this thing, it's like, yes, when you have a great run game, or that particular day, the defense can't really stop the run. Yes, you can win that way, and they just did. But to not take advantage of that with play action passes and to not turn that into something that you can build on in the future if you can't run, just all of that stuff is just maddening.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I'm going to pose this question to you guys because I was kind of thinking about this. Is it how we're drawing things up, or is it Kenny just not putting stuff over the middle? Because I'm almost coming to the belief that we're coaching Kenny to not put the ball in the middle of the field just because I'm not sure if I have a reason why, but it just feels like we're telling him not to throw to the middle of the field. Someone talk me one way or the other here.
So what my opinion of it is that Kenny's not comfortable throwing deep over the middle of the field unless he's facing a cover 0 look, unless it's something where he knows it's only like there's no one back there. He's not worried about seeing anyone back there. Because, I mean, Kenny threw over the middle in college, but it was, a lot of stuff like cross, like shallows, like some seams. It wasn't anything deep crossing the field, that's the big plays in today's NFL. Is when you get those deep crossers running behind safeties, getting behind linebackers, when you're pulling guys out of space. I think, we criticize Canada a lot, but I think a lot of Canada's stuff is to do what Kenny likes to do, which is little short bootlegs, quick throws to the perimeter where it's more of a timing thing, like the back shoulder fades and the comebacks rather than like an arm strength thing to where Kenny's comfortable. So, I mean, there's plenty to get on with, Canada's play calling and play designing and all that stuff. Maybe not so much the last 2 weeks because we run the ball, but I think it's more so what Kenny's comfortable doing, which is why we don't really ever attack the middle.
I don't know. I think
you have a take on this?
Two factors, I think. One is I do believe that this predates Kenny Pickett. It's Mike Tomlin's idea of risk aversion being the most important thing. It's like play good defense and don't make any mistakes at all on offense and just try to get the third down. That's the mentality that they operate with. And I think that they have determined somehow, I'm not sure the logic of this is sound in any way, but that if you throw over the middle, you risk making mistakes that can change the ball game and get them out of the rhythm of what they would like to do. I think that's those throws. If you throw enough of those short throws to the sideline, you're going to get picks from linemen. You're going to get pick sixes. You're going to get balls batted down. Those are bad things to me that you can avoid if you don't throw every pass short to the sidelines or dump offs in the middle of the field. So I think some of it is institutional, but I also think Kenny Pickett is falling deeper and more deeply and more deeply into predetermining before the snap the throw that he's going to make. And here's the problem with that. The problem with that is you're not going to throw to guys in the middle of the field deep on a predetermined read. You're throwing these balls to the sideline. It's like, oh, Hayward or the running back or somebody has leverage to the outside. I'm gonna make that throw. There was an example where Hayward had a little like a 2-yard outbreaking route on something in 3rd and 3, I think it was. And it's like he's going to throw the ball to him, determined ahead of the snap. It looked like that he was going to throw it to Hayward and let him fight for that extra yard and get the first down. And right off the snap, directly in the field of vision where Pickett is the Deontay Johnson's on the outside and he's running. He's just taking off for the end zone. The idea of the design is he's probably going to pull that corner back a little bit and let Hayward get in front of him. That's the designed play. But what really happened was that Deontay Johnson, from his release, had stacked the defender and was 2 or 3 yards behind him downfield. I mean, it was like an easier throw than the one that he made. And he looked right at it. So it's not like he wasn't in this field of vision, but he was so determined ahead of time to make that throw to the sideline. So I think that's part of the reason he's not attacking more downfield is that it's very hard to make predetermined reads on deep balls. And it's extremely hard in the middle of the field because defenses don't give you the look in the middle of the field before the snap. They're giving you some look about the middle of the field, but there's a lot of post-snap read that involves the middle of the field and them changing it up on you. So I think it's somewhat institutional, but a lot of it is he's really tied in now to this, predetermination before the snap, which is not the same as a pre-snap read. A pre-snap read is, oh, this is what the defense is doing. I'll have these options. But he's saying not just this is what the defense is doing or if they are or not. I like this matchup. I'm going to throw to this guy. I feel comfortable with this pass.
Gotcha. I mean, I lean a little bit more to you with the risk aversion thing. I mean, there was one play in particular where I think it was coming off a play action or something where, the ball ended up going to Jalen Warren towards the flat. But if you look on the field, George Pickens has his man beat on the right boundary. Deontay has his man beat on the left boundary, kind of in the same circumstance like what you said, Will, except it wasn't with Hayward. There is no safety over the top that is going to get to Johnson before a ball can get there.
Yeah.
But it's a check down to Warren. I just feel like Kenny's being forced to just drop the ball off and let's see where we go with it. Like, let's not make any, high risk throws. Like, I think we're coaching any confidence out of Kenny right now too. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Kenny guy or a Kenny apologist, but it's just like at some point you need your quarterback to actually take shots. And this offense doesn't take any shots right now. It's absolutely maddening. So that's kind of where I'm at with the offense, at least from this past game. It just feels like there are opportunities there, and we're just telling them not to take it. We're gonna take the safe play and hope we just pull out another win. And we have, and it's the dumbest thing ever because even the media is picking up on this absurd fact, that the Steelers are 6-3. And, like teams like the Buffalo freaking Bills that are supposedly have an elite quarterback in Josh Allen are sitting there at 5-5. The Bengals are 1 win or 1 loss away from being 5-5. It's just kind of incredible because it's like I feel like if we had a Josh Allen or if we had a Joe Burrow, be pretty close to being undefeated at this point. Maybe a loss here and there. I mean, I think we look better, way better against the 49ers. But we probably win some other ones that we dropped, or at least have closer results. But defensively, kind of liked what I saw. Joey Porter continues to play well. One little point of contention this week, I didn't see any Darius Rush after having a pretty good game last week.
He was inactive.
Yeah. I don't get that. Yep. Oh, that's right. Levi Wallace was healthy. Let's play that son of a bitch.
They claim that it's even more convoluted than that. They claim that they were running packages this week. They wanted to use packages that he had never practiced with the team. And so they elevated Elijah Riley. Elijah Riley? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah.
They've elevated him to play because he knew the packages. So it's like we can't teach him the freaking packages with an extra day or two of practice. but we can elevate a guy from the practice squad that we don't think is as good as him. It's like
Yeah, this was our long week, coming off the Thursday night game. So
Yeah.
that makes so much sense. Um,
Well, I've got I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. Was just looking at some history, and I would generally say the one thing that we've been able to stand on for our defense is that we are first in the league in turnovers, right? Like that's the one thing that we're able to stand on. Well, I looked at the past, I want to say 6 years. Yep. And the teams to lead the NFL in turnovers the last 6 years were the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Steelers, the Bears, and the Ravens. And in order, the Cowboys lost in the divisional, the Cowboys lost in the wild card, Dolphins missed the playoffs, Steelers missed the playoffs, Bears lost in the wild card, Ravens missed the playoffs. So out of the last 6 teams to lead the league in turnovers, 3 didn't make the playoffs at all. 2 lost in the wild card, 1 lost in the divisional. So that's going to be 1 playoff win from teams that led in turnovers in the last 6 years combined. So I hate to just rain on the parade, but the one thing that we're good at has zero translation to playoff success. I mean, I'm not sure what else that says. I mean, I went back even further. It didn't really fit my stats just because I wasn't going to go back to 2005. But
Before you were born.
It was the Panthers were the only team in 2 decades to have led the league in turnovers, and they had an MVP at quarterback. So,
I mean, how dare you try to throw Mike Tomlin's recipe back at him?
I was a bit surprised by this. I mean, I wasn't expecting those results when I started.
Well, it's like sacks. How many years did the Steelers lead the league in sacks? But it didn't translate into even making the playoffs in many years.
Yeah.
Certainly not, having a deep run. It's like, how important are the sacks and turnovers that we're sort of built on? Or for that matter, the run game. It's like, if you think about the elements that they're interested in having to be, we want to be, great at running the football, great at rushing the passer, and great at creating turnovers and not giving the other team turnovers. Those are maybe 3 of the least impactful things in terms of what it appears to be the results. So
to project wins, yeah,
it works for them, but I think I don't know. It's like they're true believers, man. They're not going to be swayed by anything else that happens elsewhere in the league. They're not even going to be swayed about the lack of postseason success. None of that stuff's really going to matter if they continue to win. Like, to me, it's like, if you think this formula, let's say best case scenario, their quarterback continues to improve, and maybe this isn't the year, but next year you have a chance to upgrade the offensive line, maybe look at some of the receiving core and try to improve their fit for what we want to try to do, and get guys who want to be in this kind of offense, etc. And maybe it all works perfectly, and next year you get a playoff win. And then maybe you realize that either the quarterback isn't enough to elevate you and you want to add another guy or whatever. It's like it feels like they could make progress, but it's so incremental, and they're going to make changes at the pace of a turning super tanker, as I always like to say. So it's like I can't knock them. They're winning the games they're supposed to win, more or less. And those 2 early seasons, they took advantage of Baltimore and Cleveland early in the season, making mistakes against them. Good, those games count. I just don't. I'm not sure that. I don't know. We're going to find out a lot in the next 2 weeks, I guess, is what I'll have to say, because they're going to play 2 teams that they on paper and based on the whole season to date, they're not as good at but we'll find out if they, their formula can still sneak them another win against the Cincinnati's and Cleveland's and Baltimore's of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the media on this. Like, even the media realizes that the Steelers' record with how we're doing it is absolutely absurd. Like, everyone knows it's kind of absurd, the fact that the Steelers, believe it or not, are potentially 2 wins and losses out of first place in the AFC. What was it earlier? If the Bengals win and the Chiefs lose on Sunday to the Eagles, yeah, I think that's right. The Steelers have the number 1 seed in the AFC. The bar now, obviously, they have to win a ball game, this upcoming week.
Well, that's also, you can look at it too. the Steelers have a lot of teams right on their heels.
They
That's
do.
the thing too, where we're in the playoffs right now. But if you throw these next 2 games away for whatever
Top 15
reason,
pick. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
you
like
go from the
you're down at
possibility
the
of
bottom of the AFC.
first in the conference to like a top 15 pick in 2 weeks.
Yeah, what is it? 13 teams, I think, have a 500 record or better in the AFC.
Good for the league. I mean, that's fun,
I
but
mean, that's ridiculous. And when you think about it,
well, and you know what this season kind of feels like? It's not exactly the same, but it has the same kind of vibes as that undefeated start, where
11-0. Yeah,
you just knew you weren't as good as what the record was, but you're just kind of riding it out to see how far it took you. The undefeated season was at least a little more fun because we were at a relatively historical number like that. Not many teams got to where we had gotten. This one, we just know that something's coming. Like it's at some point the luck's gonna come back down to here, and we're gonna have a rough stretch. So
yeah, I believe as they say in Westeros, winter is coming. For those that actually understand that reference.
yeah, most definitely.
So one more question before we kind of move on to matchups. Just briefly touching on this big battle on Thursday night, which will determine a lot in the AFC North when I think it's the Bengals go to Baltimore or Baltimore to Bengals. I can't remember.
It's Bengals to Baltimore, I believe.
Bengals to Baltimore. Thank you for correcting me there. I got it switched around in my head. But so, in your guys' opinion, there are 2 ways this game can go, obviously. If the Bengals win on Thursday night, Steelers have a chance to vault up to the top of the AFC North. Or if the Ravens win, the Steelers technically have a higher chance of making the playoffs because, they dropped to 5-5 all of a sudden. We're 2 games ahead, conference and all that. Which would you like to see more?
I'm going to be honest. I almost don't care at this point because I feel like there's so much of our own business that we have to handle to where I don't think this game's going to matter in the long run.
But they all matter. Like later, you'll be at the end of December going, if they had just played, if they had just won that game against the Browns, But
I'll say the Ravens to win just because it makes Cincy climb out of more of a hole. I like our matchup over the Ravens more than I like us versus the Bengals, but we have so much of our own business to handle before that is it's kind of tough to make a definitive statement.
I mean, I would say if there's any chance the Steelers are going to win a playoff game this year, it's probably winning their division and facing somebody that they might have a chance to beat. I mean, I kind of feel like they'd have a puncher's chance against a divisional opponent just because they know them well, and often those games are really close. And you'd have a puncher's chance against Buffalo because they've beaten Buffalo recently. Kind of let them make their mistakes and hung in there, kind of like the formula they like to play. So Buffalo sort of suits them a little bit. So Miami doesn't really beat anybody good supposedly. So I don't know. It's like no, I don't either. But I'm saying playing them in Pittsburgh, I feel like you'd have at least a better chance than you would if you have to go on the road to Kansas City or Baltimore or Buffalo. Like, in other words, I guess yes, of course, Steelers' best interest to win the division rather than get a home game rather than be on the road. But actually, are you guaranteed? Yes, you are, right? If you win your division, you're guaranteed at least one game at home.
Yeah, one game.
Yeah, because the two division winners will get the bye. Two division winners will get the bye.
But here's the thing: not only would the Steelers have a chance to go first in the division, so would the Browns. So then that game is like one of the winner of that game would end up being first in the division. How crazy would that be?
Yeah, that would be pretty crazy. But let's get off the hypothetical. Obviously, there's a lot more football. Let's get off the hypothetical. Obviously, there's a lot more football to be played before then. Well, yeah. So obviously, we've got a big matchup this week. We've got to take care of business ourselves for that little hypothetical question to even matter. Like Corey pointed out, even though that wasn't the point of the exercise, Corey. But anyway, obviously Pittsburgh heading to Cleveland this week. Have to go up north, play by the lake. Definitely think weather could be a factor this week. But guys, what are some matchups we should be on the lookout for this week?
I think the big one's going to be what Deshaun Watson we get. Is it going to be the Deshaun Watson since the middle of last season, or is it going to be the second half of the Ravens game, Deshaun Watson, who looked alive, if that's what looked like the old Deshaun Watson? So, I mean, that's going to be a Deshaun Watson versus our edge rushers, Deshaun Watson versus Terrell Austin, you know, whoever you want to call it, but it's just going to be which version of him do we get is going to be the biggest factor in this game.
Yeah, that's obviously a good one. Of the quarterbacks obviously win a lot of ball games. Will, what's a matchup you're looking forward to this week?
Just quickly to piggyback on that, I think he's looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. Actually, I'm talking about Deshaun Watson because someone was last week was talking about how he's been terrible, but I was like, actually, he's starting to look better, which is a little scary. It's like thankfully they don't have their number one running back right now, because if they had that defense, Deshaun Watson coming into form and still had
Nick Chubb,
Chubb, well, that would be sort of disastrous for the rest of the division. My matchup is Dalvin Tomlinson, the defensive tackle for Cleveland, and Roderick Jones. It's like it's like and for that matter, James, what's the right?
James Daniels.
Yes, James Daniels. I mean, the thing about Dalvin Tomlinson is there's not a lot of stuff that he's really outstanding at, but he is a brick wall in the run game. He's just that guy, that Alabama tackle that you think of, just prototypical for them, just this big dude that's very hard to move. And it'll be an interesting test to see if the Steelers are able to get the same kind of push in that part of the line that they have the last couple of weeks. That's been a gigantic difference. I would argue that Roderick Jones is the only thing that's really changed about the offense in the last couple of weeks, and that if his matchup becomes more difficult, I'm interested to see. I'm not saying it's going to be a train wreck, but I'm interested to see how they deal with that. And then the flip to that is they'll run Myles Garrett outside of that. So while you're thinking about excuse me, blocking or dealing with Dalvin Tomlinson, and suddenly you got Myles Garrett on your right shoulder, trying to figure out what you're going to do with that problem. So yeah, I feel like it's their defense presents a different set of problems, and they're at a completely different level defense than what the Steelers have been facing recently, especially the Green Bay Packers. God bless them. They put up a good fight in every game. They don't really get blown out usually, but yeah, they're not a very good defense, as you could tell from that for opening drive last week. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this plays out for the Steelers run game, because if they're able to run it against a really stout front, that's interesting to me. That shows me something more than we know now.
Yeah, I hate to sound like a beaten drum, but it's like I say this every week. But I mean, I pointed out that I thought Luke Musgrave might make a big impact in this last week. Boy, if Luke Musgrave can make a big impact, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, that they're going to be playing against linebackers that don't cover, and Landon Roberts and Mark Robinson. I mean, and I understand Mykal Walker, is probably going to get elevated here, who's got a little bit more experience in coverage and whatnot. But I mean, that seems like the biggest glaring matchup to me, because, sure enough, Luke Musgrave had a big day, and it wasn't necessarily huge statistically, but it was situationally where we could not keep up with him. He made a big catch, it moved the chains. I think you could just see a lot of that, because I think Pittsburgh is going to be selling out to stop that run. Because even with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, they're still running the ball pretty well. Cleveland is. I mean, they were able to run the ball pretty well against Baltimore this past week too, against a pretty stout front as well. So that's my big concern. I see play action passing just killing this team this week if Cleveland can start to run the ball at all. And go ahead, Corey. Go ahead.
I've got two things to tag on. So we actually do have a coverage linebacker on the roster. It's not Mykal Walker, who I'm thinking of. It's Keanu Neal, where we would imagine he would have been playing a lot of the time, but he is starting at strong safety all the time. So that's another, it's a bit of a scary sight in coverage, because in terms of looking at coverage, Keanu Neal's a solid to good coverage linebacker. But at safety, that value goes. It's like a bit of a plane crashing. It's pretty rapid. So that's the one thing. The second thing, we didn't really mention it. We are supposed to get Pat Fryermuth back this week, is what I've been reading.
I was wondering about that.
I'm really not too sold on how much. I mean, if he just. Here's the thing: is part of the reason we've been able to run the ball so well is when we've had Darnell Washington in there, sealing off the edge, kicking out the edge. If we use Pat how we've been using Connor Hayward, I've no qualms about that. That's a big upgrade. I like Connor Hayward, but that's Pat does it better. But if you put Pat in the situations that you've had Darnell Washington in, you're going to see the run game get worse. Pat has never been a great run blocker. He's been okay enough to work with, but he was bad before he got injured.
I've been saying this since before the draft. You have to pick your spots with Fryermuth blocking. If he's blocking a smaller player in space, he's actually, I would call him almost elite as a tight end at that particular skill. But if you try to get him to down block or block bigger players near the line of scrimmage in the box, like not his game. But he's very good on the move against smaller players. Like you don't often see tight ends that are able to target that well in space and on the move. So the thing is, though, that's not really what they're asking. That's not what Darnell Washington is doing. So I don't know. I'm not sure really how they're going to deal with this. They haven't really got a lot of production out of their number 3 wide receiver, except for the fact that he's a good blocker. So do you go play more 2 tight end sets, tight end looks, and let Darnell Washington do some more blocking and maybe go some play action, or do you I feel like they're not going to do something innovative. It's like, okay, here's how we're going to beat the Browns. We're going to twist up our packages a little bit. I feel like you're going to see the same thing that they just did against Green Bay, and they've been doing for a couple of weeks now, and they're going to come out and start to try to establish that same thing against Cleveland. And if they can't, then I don't know what they do after that. But I'm not sure that we're going to get some new wrinkles just because probably, as you said, they'll just replace 80 with Fryermuth, and like to what end, I don't know, because they won't.
Well, I have a question for you, Will. So to get Pat on the move, that would require some outside running concepts, right? Where we're getting Pat moving out wide in space. What do you think Najee's 40 is right now if you made him run it?
I assume that he's faster than I am, but I would not embarrass. I'm like maybe a little faster than Rich Eisen, right? So like I would say Najee is not quite in the mid 5s, but it would shock me if it were under 5'9" or 4'9". Wouldn't, I mean, to me he looks like a 4'8", 4'9" guy. Right?
So how much opportunity do we really have to get our tight ends out in space to block other than a jet?
No, and even Jamie Warren that's not his game either, really.
No, he's more burst than
one cut and like boom,
yes.
Right up the field. Right. Before you know what's happening, he's 18 inches off the ground and through the line. Yeah. so they don't really have. They have Anthony McFarland, who never touches the ball on offense, But yeah, it's like I said, I don't see Fryermuth's skills really fitting what Najee Harris does, and I don't really see Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren fitting what you would need to like get a big passing game going. It's like I'm not the one choosing the schemes for the players, obviously.
Yeah, so just kind of building on a few things you guys said. I mean, first and foremost, when it comes to this defense, you got to know where Myles Garrett is. He's been playing like a man on terror, and I can guarantee you he remembers the fact that Darnell Washington was able to single-handedly block him in the first matchup. Something tells me that's like scratching at the back of his eyes, being like, hey, 80 got the best of you last time. Don't let that happen again. So I just kind of have a bad feeling that the run game, could kind of vanish this week. And if that's the case, we've got no shot of winning this ball game with the way, Pittsburgh wants to play offense, what they're wanting Kenny to do with it.
By the way, I think Dan Moore, Myles Garrett has to have a Dan Moore poster up on his wall too. Like, Dan Moore has been pretty terrible against most of the NFL, and he's been pretty decent against Myles Garrett. So it's like, I imagine that Myles Garrett is aware of that too,
I will say, Dan Moore hasn't gone against, too many world beaters, and the ball's coming out quick these last couple of weeks. But how many times have we seen the left side get, just whooped how we were seeing it at the beginning of the year? I mean, I'll say Dan Moore, when you're not actively saying, that damn left tackle, they're probably doing a fairly decent job. So, I mean, I haven't looked at him too closely, but I know whatever he's doing pass pro wise has been better than what he was doing at the beginning.
But teams are totally. I mean, the Steelers are totally negating teams' pass rush because they're throwing the ball immediately to the sidelines or running the football. So it's like they're not even giving. Like we haven't seen them trailing late. Where teams know they're desperate to throw it. We haven't really they haven't really been in a position where they're really behind and they've got to pass protect longer. That whole thing of Kenny escaping from clean pockets, and there's a little bit of that happening, but they've taken away the opportunities for that by barely throwing the ball downfield. So maybe that's the solution.
It's something we've said before. It's just kind of like, it feels like a doggone Kenny episode. He didn't even play that bad last game, but how many things has Kenny done this year that a backup from basically any team hasn't been able to do? That's just kind of the thing to look at is you invested a first round pick into this QB, and I can't really think of maybe having a bit of a clutch factor, but I mean that's kind of what a lot of these backups are known for, is coming in and having a little bit of bite to them. So
what's their record with Andy Dalton or Ryan Fitzpatrick right now?
Yeah, I mean Taylor Heineke. There's weapons, there's a solid O-line.
Yeah,
Taylor
Heineke is maybe a step below, but yeah, I like him and everything. But geez,
Yeah, I'm just saying I think we would have gotten a pretty similar results. If the Steelers would have waited to take Sam Howell in the 4th or 5th round last year.
He's the leader in passing yards right now in the NFL.
But I mean that's my point. Kind of back to what Will said. And he's supposed to be a first round pick. It's supposed to go out there and win games for you, show off impressive ability. It's like anything but right now, other than the fact of, like you said, he's got the 4th quarter. Okay, let's go win a game type thing.
He can hang his hat on that at least a little bit right now. He's, like I said, he almost got a chance at the NFL record for the first 2 seasons. If Green Bay had managed,
he probably gets it. He probably is going to get that record.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost inevitable that they'll have another 4th quarter comeback before the year's out.
Yeah. So you guys are gonna have to illuminate me. What record are you talking about? I must have missed this.
Right now he's tied, he's one behind the all-time record for the most game 4th quarter comebacks in the first 2 seasons started.
Okay, gotcha.
First 2 seasons in the NFL
together, but I wanted to.
It was some pretty successful QBs that are up on that list. I can't remember.
Well, except for Tim Tebow was on it.
Except for Tim Tebow.
Anomaly. Let's not talk about Tim Tebow. There's still negative emotions about that man.
I still see the play on my TV.
Oh,
you're still in your feelings.
Yeah, sure. I'm still in my feelings. Well, the worst.
By the way, I got to tell you a story about that game. I was in Iceland. Okay, I was in Iceland, and I struggled to find a place where I could watch the NFL game. And I found the NFL game, and there's one other person in a bar of 300 rowdy drunk people with this television on and no sound. But we're life and death in this game. And when that play happened, it was just nobody to sympathize. No one was watching. Nobody cared. It was just me going, fuck.
That's essentially what happened to me too. I mean, I was sitting at my fraternity house all week long. I was saying, there's no goddamn way we're going to lose to Tim freaking Tebow. Sure enough, one goddamn play in overtime. God, it almost feels like it happened yesterday.
Just to bring it around to Sunday, the last play, the Steelers defensive coordinator wanted to run man coverage, with the players starting back off 30 yards off the line, 20 yards off the line of scrimmage, and then picking up the man when they came to them, which is fine. But it's if there was ever a recipe to not being able to, for a team to score a miracle touchdown, it would be, running around instead of just holding your ground and waiting for the ball to come to you. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, as famously, had to step in there and argue with him about it. Once again, this is Kevin Dotson got suspended for such a thing. I can't imagine what they're going to do to Minkah Fitzpatrick. But yeah, it's that, we haven't done anything this year as bad as calling a zero, coverage, against Tim Tebow in the overtime, where the only way you can lose the game is to give up a touchdown. But
Don't
yeah,
think too hard about
scary.
it. Just quick answer. What grade do you think I was in when that play happened?
Like fourth.
I was in
Oh.
third grade when that play happened.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's close.
And you're still scarred. You're still
What'd you say?
emotional. You're still in your feelings about it, even though you're
Oh,
only in the
that's
third.
one of my. I remember the Cardinals Super Bowl just because I went to a tailgate for that, and then that was probably my second most vivid Steelers memory from being young.
Yeah, boy, that Super Bowl was great because I had about 50 people in this basement, all from like my class or whatever. We ordered 100 wings from Hooters. Hooters screwed up the order, so we got another 100 wings. But
And you
and
ate
then
them all.
right. Well, and then to win the game, how we win that, it was like, I had bragging rights for the rest of the year because I had a cool Super Bowl party. We won, big game, all that. But with that being said, there are some other games around the league, believe it or not, that definitely are going to impact the playoff race. There's quite a few actually. Let's go ahead and bite the bullet. We've kind of already talked about Cincinnati and Baltimore. Let's just get that one out of the way. Cincinnati goes to Baltimore. Baltimore is favored by 0.5. That shows you how close Vegas doesn't want to put any real skin in the game on this one. I'll start off with this one just because I feel like we've kind of talked about it already. Going to take Baltimore. Just kind of feel like they've got more things going right for them than Cincinnati does. If T. Higgins doesn't play, I lean even more to Baltimore just because they're relying on other guys to step up. Even though Cincinnati would have won that game if Tyler Boyd just would have hung on a damn ball. So I think it'll be a close one. Do they cover? No, I'm just joking. 0.5. I don't think there's an option to cover or not. I'll just take Baltimore to win this.
I think a push is in order.
A push. Yeah. God forbid. God forbid that be the one NFL game that goes to a tie this weekend. Corey, what's your thoughts on this one?
There's something to be. I think you're starting to see signs where I'm not sure if it's a coach thing. That's what I think it is. I don't think it's really a Lamar thing, but the Ravens have had a tendency to lose some big games or some close games over these last 2-3 years where, maybe it's just that you remember them, but it just feels like their coach doesn't really know how to play with the lead a lot of the time. So, there's two ways to look at it. There's one where you say, oh, well, that means they should lose to the Bengals. But I think the Ravens might come out with a bit of a fire where it's like we just dropped one against a divisional rival. We shouldn't have, if this is the Steelers, we're saying that, we got to get this next one, which we could be next week. We could be saying that. But, I think that's kind of the motivation for the Ravens. It's tough. They're both good teams. But I'm just going to lean with the Ravens given the nature of how they lost last week.
Well,
yeah, I'm tired of picking games on a gut feeling. Like Cincinnati feels like they're on the upswing and whatever. I'm just going to pick Baltimore's a better team so far this year. They're playing at home on a short week. I try not to overthink it too much. I could easily see the Bengals winning this game and eventually winning the division. Like I kind of think that's where the division is headed. But Cincinnati, normally they split with Baltimore. There's very few times that they are going to run the table on the NFC teams. So I mean on the division teams. So make mine Baltimore because I just they're the chalk pick. I have no good reason to not pick them. I feel like both teams have something to prove. They both had disappointing games last week. So give it to the home team on a short week.
all right. Yeah, that is true. The home team on a short week wins 60% of the time. Baltimore's your trendy pick this week anyway, probably. Let's go to another one that's definitely a bigger impact than what we think, with Buffalo losing the other day. Buffalo plays host to the New York Jets. Jets are 4-5. Buffalo is 5-5. Buffalo's in this very dangerous range of doing just enough to not host a divisional game and then go somewhere and lose one. Be probably a very disappointing year. Buffalo is at home. They are favored by 7. Corey, I'll let you start off with this.
7's that's an awfully big line. That's the first thing that stands out. One thing that kind of it's a little funny about all this is, Brian Dabble is, not on a hot seat in New York, but I mean, there's a little bit of murmuring going on over there, and the Bills' offense just hasn't looked the same since he's left. And you see what the Giants' offense looks like. So it's kind of one of those things where you look at it, you're like, damn, sometimes it's just a match of quarterback and coach that will sometimes take you there. Yeah. But I think, I don't know, this is anecdotal, but I feel like whenever a team drops a coordinator, I feel like they tend to play better the next week for whatever reason that is. So I'm just going to go with the Bills here and to cover. I think Josh Allen the turnovers were a bit more unlucky than anything. There were some bonehead decisions, but I'm going to lean with the Bills here. I don't think Allen has too many of those games back to back. He's looked off, but I think he might just, he's a gunslinger already, but I think he might have a big week this week.
Yeah, Corey, you're not wrong about, a coaching change impacting the next week's results. I think if you go back and look at teams that fire their head coach mid-season, the next week they win like 90% of the time. I don't know exactly what the coordinator, that stat wasn't broke down, but the win rate after a coach getting fired is, especially when it comes to head coaches, like through the roof. So it'd be interesting to know, how many times.
A lot of times, they're getting rid of a coach that's like cost their team 2 or 3
years.
Bad. Like Josh McDaniels effect.
Right. I mean, I feel like Ken Dorsey was more of a scapegoat than anything. I mean, he can't catch balls, which Corey alluded to a little bit. But Will, what's your kind of thoughts on this one?
Let me ask you a question. Did the Jets and Zach Wilson defeat the Buffalo Bills this year? Answer: yes, but don't expect that to ever happen again. The Buffalo Bills are going to win this game and cover by 7. Yeah, the Jets defense is good, but man, I'm never picking the Jets to win anything ever again with Zach Wilson, even though I'm sure they'll pull out a couple of weird surprise wins that you don't expect before the season is out. But Aaron Rodgers, by the way, the news in New York today is that he expects to be, quote, full-time with the team as of Thanksgiving, meaning he's going to practice. That's what the word is.
So that was kind of another reason I brought up this game. If the Jets can somehow, like you said, manage to put together a few meager wins and Rodgers can come back and all of a sudden make that offense just good. It doesn't have to be great. It just has to be good when you've got that type of a defense. Could the Jets possibly push? I don't know. Right now, the AFC is so cloudy. It's hard to know. But
Breece Hall's so much better than Dalvin Cook and Michael Carter, and they were just force-feeding carries to both of them for a while. I think the release of Michael Carter, which we texted about, wouldn't be against bringing him in, but I think that might actually help them a lot because it's forcing them to give carries to one of the better running backs in the NFL. So,
not to mention one of the better backups. I mean, Dalvin Cook, could and should probably be starting for several teams, even a little older at this point. But anyway, I like Buffalo this week. It's a have to get right division game. Kind of like what Will said. Good God, Zach Wilson. What the hell? I mean, yeah, because I was watching their game. It wasn't this past week, but I think it was the week before, and I was just like, how do you all keep missing on these plays? I don't know.
If you've seen one, I think you get them all with Zach Wilson.
Say that again?
I think if you've seen one, you've seen them all with Zach Wilson. It's a lot of the same mistakes every week.
Right. Another interesting one this weekend, Minnesota traveling to Denver. Minnesota all of a sudden is going on a little bit of a win streak here. Josh freaking Dobbs. That pisses me off that he's doing so well, not in a Pittsburgh uniform. But they go to Denver, who ironically has pulled some wins out of their ass, beat some team called Buffalo the other day. Denver
beat the Chiefs, didn't they?
Yeah, they beat the Chiefs. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was like Mahomes' flu game. and the ice cold wind or whatever. But anyway, it's like they're playing a hell of a lot better since they're by. Denver's at home, favored by 2. I'll start this one off. Minnesota's offense Will, have I let you start one off yet?
No, but I'm happy to.
Will, go for it.
I think it'd be scary to write off Russ Wilson's season just yet. It feels like the last couple of weeks, it's like he's determined to not, to be in this pocket passer or whatever. But it's like, man, given the opportunity and the willingness, he's totally capable of making some weird plays happen. Like a little breakdown in something, and suddenly he flips the ball backhanded, or he throws it desperation in the back of the end zone and nails the guy in the back corner. So I think that makes Denver a little bit more dangerous, and at home especially. The weather. The idea of going to Denver in November is people like, oh, it's going to be wintertime for these people who play in a dome. But the reality is Denver's very mild in the winter. It'll probably be spectacularly beautiful weather that we'll all be jealous of if we see the game. But yeah, Josh Dobbs has been a nice story and has played well since he's been there. But I would expect he is not someone to me that's going to consistently be very good every week. So it's almost the fact that he had such a good couple of weeks makes me feel like he'll also have a couple of clunkers thrown in there. That seems to be par for the course for him. So I'll take Denver.
All right, Corey.
Yeah, I've got 2 reasons for going with the team I'm going with. For starters, Minnesota, they have Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Dobbs, but that's all passing stuff. They have very bad running backs. Like their running backs give them nothing. They're not great in the pass. They are not great at finding holes. The O-line's shaky. So Josh Dobbs has some wheels on him, but since they've given up those 70 points, I think Denver's been a top 4 defense or something like that in the NFL, which is, I don't know how that happens. That's kind of baffling. But the other part, it kind of goes into what Will was saying. Russell Wilson's been coming on a little bit, and what that Vikings defense does, what makes that Vikings defense good, is that they blitz. They blitz all the time. It's a Brian Flores staple. And if there's one thing that Russell Wilson's always been able to do, and it's something he'll always be able to do, it's going to be to beat the blitz. He thrives in that chaos. When you get him stepping up, he has to find the hots, he's always been able to do that. So I think this is just a bit of a recipe for, Josh Dobbs is due to have something go wrong. That's how it goes with these backup types. And I think Russell Wilson's, that Vikings defense kind of plays into his game. I'm not sure the Vikings have the corners to match up that well with Sutton, who's been playing well, and Judy. I just think a lot of the signs point towards Denver here. It's a home game as well. So,
all right. I'm going to take the Pastronaut here. He's just rising his way up the boards.
The Pastronaut.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it. I won't believe.
I saw it this week too. It's like,
I won't claim to take any credit for that, but I thought that was funny when I saw it. I don't know. Josh Dobbs is doing a lot of good things right now. I think the Vikings are rallying behind him too, even if he doesn't know half the players on his own team.
it's a fun story.
It is a fun story. Maybe that's what's got me going that way, but I think Minnesota pulls out a tough one. Even though, like you said, they have no running game essentially at this point. I mean, Tyson Chandler is supposed to be starting this week, who was their like 3rd or 4th running back to start the year. So I don't know. Hawkinson's been playing really well. They've been getting contributions elsewhere. I say they pull out a close one. Hell, it's only 2, so win and cover. Why not? Last one we'll go to rematch of the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia is headed to Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 2.5. I'll start off with this one because it's probably the toughest game we'll come to. I like the Eagles in this one. I just feel like they little bit more complete team offensively. I think there's more they can rely on offensively as where the Chiefs. I know Rashee Rice has emerged a little bit as a passing option, but I mean, honestly, outside of Travis Kelce, they just don't do a whole lot for me offensively. They've been more hanging their hat on their defense. I think when that defense plays a great offense like they will be, in Philadelphia. I just think Philadelphia is going to win out there. That's where I think the difference is. So I will take Philadelphia to win on the road in the Super Bowl rematch. Corey, throw it out to you.
Both these teams are damn good. I was leaning the Eagles. I think if I had to go on a neutral site, I'd probably pick the Eagles. But I think that at home, Kansas City always has a good home field advantage. I think they always play better at home. I think that's a big thing with Mahomes is that he's very, very good at home. It's kind of, all those great quarterbacks end up being great at home. I'm just going to go with the Chiefs just because of that. I feel like it's almost dead even. So if I've got to go one way or the other, it's going to be the home field advantage.
All right, Will.
I think Kansas City's better this year than they were last year, and I think Philadelphia is not as good as they were last year. So, in a nutshell, in a rematch of we saw what that game looked like with the highest stakes. So everybody playing at their top form, I think Kansas City's better. I think that Philly's defense is funny. They have a lot of depth, and at times they can be really dominant. I think they're really good at closing games, much like the Steelers are recently. So I wouldn't let that fool you into thinking that they're really elite in terms of stopping teams. So I think Kansas City is the most complete team in the NFL in a way. They're the only team in the NFL that is top 10 in DVOA in offense, defense, and special teams. And I feel like they had that bad game against Denver, but they're flying almost a little bit under the radar right now. They have a very complete team. They have some super players on defense. They have the best quarterback in the league and probably the best offensive coach in the league. Not a bad defensive coordinator either. It's like, I think we forget how good the Chiefs are. I will take the Chiefs in this game.
All right. So I have a little bit of a confession to make. I deliberately misled you guys into thinking I was taking the Eagles because there's also only one stat that matters for Kansas City right now. Taylor Swift is off tour. She'll be in the building. That's it. Game over. Chiefs win. That's all that matters.
Oh my God.
Kelsey wins.
It's a primetime game too, right? Oh
yeah.
My God.
Yeah. It's
better be
Monday Night Football. So I mean, of course Taylor's going to be there. Hell, the NFL's probably paying her to be there.
Why not? Yeah.
So Chiefs win because Kelsey has a 300-yard game or something and rewrites a record or something. So sorry to mislead you, but I just thought that'd be a fun little thing to throw in there. Last game, 5-star matchup supposedly every week when we play. Pittsburgh.
Pretty good matchup.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is headed up north to take on the Cleveland Browns. We'll let you start off with this one.
I've gone around in this game a little bit. At first blush, the moment that the gun sounded at the end of Sunday's game, I thought that the Browns were in a position where they were probably going to reveal all the flaws of the Steelers team and win by a couple of scores in this game. I would submit that is still the most likely scenario, but I'll give the Steelers and Mike Tomlin a little bit of credit. They may not be built to win games against good teams or better teams by big margins or whatever, but they're definitely they can keep it close with the best of them.
I want to say this real quick. I didn't even think of it. I read it today. Deshaun Watson might not be playing.
Yeah, he's in a boot, but he said he's fine. So
he said that for the whole month before this though, where he just came back.
That's true. So I guess we have to figure I guess I would say if you're getting prime Deshaun Watson like the second half of last week, that's one thing. If you're getting Deshaun Watson of 5 weeks ago, PJ Walker might be pleasant alternative in a way. Anyway, that was a long way from me to saying at first I thought maybe the Browns were going to win big, and then I started factoring into that the Steelers tend to make themselves close to even better teams. I mean, the Browns are not going to be confused on offense with San Francisco. They're unlikely to just light it up, more likely to grind you down into a fine dust. So I think that will keep the game maybe a little bit closer in the end. The Browns are like a 10% better at everything team right now than the Steelers are. So barring some catastrophic and really stupid mistakes like they made last time they played, which I don't think you can count on again, I'll take the Browns to win. Let's call it a very low scoring 20-13 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Gotcha. And I neglected to tell you the line. Cleveland is favored at home by 4. So it looks like you're taking Cleveland to cover.
I'm taking them to cover. I mean, I would say that it's more likely that Cleveland blows them out than it is that the Steelers win. I think both are possibilities, but I figure Browns in a relatively one-score game.
Gotcha. Which would be the first one-score game we've lost this year.
That's correct.
Interesting enough. Corey, what are your thoughts on this?
Regardless of what I'm about to say, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm predicting the Steelers to lose. I'm riding my anti-hot hand of picking losses on this section of the show where it leads to wins. So I'm going to say right now, 28-24 Steelers loss. But looking at the actual game, ignoring my prediction, I do like what AFC, I always say this, AFC North is just different from every other game. With the exception of the Bengals just blasting us 2 years ago, whatever that was. For the most part, we have been winning. And, we very consistently win in the AFC North. That's kind of what our team's built to do. It's what Tomlin loves to do. I think those are his favorite games of the year because we never get in the playoffs. So I think these are the games that he's able to get everyone up for. And it wouldn't surprise me if we won. But I will be picking us to lose 28-24.
All right, so I don't know whether that was an answer to that or not. You do 2 things every week at this point, so I don't know why we go to you for that. But anyway,
it's just like he's just playing both sides.
Until I pick a loss and then we actually lose, then I'll.
By the way, I can tell you, Corey, the highlight, the low light of my dating experience and my low light of the 8th, 9th grade was I somehow invited 2 girls to the same dance. And I thought in my 8th grade, mind, I thought I was going to be able to keep them separated and like work it out. But it actually ended up being like a horribly difficult, no fun, just bad. And I feel like you're trying to play both sides here. You're trying to give the analysis to show that you're smart, about what's going to happen in this game, but you're also superstitious. This don't go together very well. That's all I'm trying to say. You can try to keep them both going at the same time, but they're working against each other, and they're whatever.
So that situation kind of reminds me of The Office, where Michael Scott invites his boss, and then the girl, the realtor or whatever, it's like they both show up at the same time, and it's like, oh shoot, they're both here. What do I do? But anyway, I think this is going to be one ugly ass game. I don't think it's going to be very enjoyable to watch. Honestly, I don't think either offense really gets going. I don't think.
Oh, what would make you say such a thing about a Steelers game, that it might be ugly and hard to watch?
Yeah, AFC North. I mean, isn't that explosive football all the time? But I think it'll be really low scoring. I just think the Browns do enough to clamp down the offense in an offense where if we can't run the ball, we're asking Pickett to make throws he hasn't made in weeks. I just don't trust it. The one thing I do trust is Jim Schwartz and that Cleveland defense. They've been playing absolutely stellar football. I don't see that really stopping this week. I think we played good defense. I don't think we'll play great defense, and that's the edge. I like Cleveland here 17-13. So they do cover the 4. They do pull off the win. So hopefully I'm wrong, but I just struggle thinking that we're just going to go into Cleveland. We're going to run the ball like we have the last 2 weeks, even with a Pat Fryermuth who doesn't like the block. I just think this Cleveland team is going to come in pissed and ready to play. It's not going to be a lot of points. Just going to be ugly win. Classic AFC North football where we're just on the other end of it.
Jeremy, I think it's definitely important in division games that if you've lost to the other team already,
Mhm.
I think you come in the second game with a lot more incentive for winning the next time than the one who wins the first time does for sweeping you. Like I'm sure it's like, okay, we're going to sweep them now, but that angry energy of, we lost the first game, we did all this stuff, we beat ourselves, we're going to go out there and show them. That's a really sort of like powerful kind of sports
Well, I mean,
motivation.
win one for Chubb here. I mean, and that's why I mentioned the Miles Garrett thing earlier. That guy, he didn't get embarrassed the last time we played, but he wasn't like all over the stat sheet like he has been in some other games this year. I think, you could see Miles Garrett, versus Mason Rudolph, more of that type of domination type of a game.
Maybe we get lucky and he'll swing his helmet and hit Kenny Pickett in the head.
The fourth concussion to end his NFL career. Well,
Sorry, too much.
well, that's all we've got this week, Steelers fans. But we're gonna go off on that before someone else gets their head bopped in.
Oh boy, I'm in trouble.
I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. Thank you for joining us. You know me as Smith is Smoking, joined by Corey Karbowski, Corey39, Will Masek, Brad Shaw to Ben. Hopefully, it's hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we pull off a win, but there won't be many yellow towels swirling in Cleveland this week, like we've had the luxury of doing when we travel to other areas this year. So
You never know.
you never know. Go Steelers.